所有中国文献以及文学的这个藏书的丰富性。
This evening's event also marks the beginning of a partnership between Regent's Park College and Beijing Normal University, where Mo Yan is director of the International Writers Center.
我们今天傍晚的这个活动呢，也标志着我们摄政园学院与北京师范大学一个合作的开始。那么莫言老师呢，是我们北京师范大学国际写作中心的主任。
Our collaboration is called Performing Literatures and Culture, the Humanities in a Global Context. And over the next 5 years, we will explore this theme together through a series of seminars, lectures, exhibitions, and academic exchanges.
我们与北京师范大学的合作呢，有一个名称叫做表演文学与文化在全球语境下的人文学研究。那么在接下来的5年当中，我们的合作呢将会召开各种不同的讲座、研讨会、展览以及学术交流的活动。
As part of that collaboration, I'm delighted to announce the establishment of the Mo Yan International Writing Center at Regent's Park College.
作为合作的一个部分，我非常有幸宣布呢，我们在摄政园学院建立了莫言国际写作中心。
Su Tong and Yu Hua are its first writers in residence, and we look forward with pleasure to working with them.
并且有幸邀请到苏童和余华老师呢，成为我们这个中心的首批常驻的这个访问作家。
And one of our earliest initiatives will be to establish a creative writing prize.
并且这个中心最开始的第一个倡议呢，是希望能够建立一个专门赠予创意写作的奖项。
So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our three guests and also to our moderator.
那么现在就让我向大家介绍今天的3位尊贵的客人以及我们的主持人。
Professor Mo Yan was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2012.
莫言教授在2012年的时候获得了诺贝尔文学奖。
He was born to a farming family in Shandong Province and left school at the age of 11.
他出生于山东的一个农户家庭，然后在11岁的时候就离开了学校。
His literary talent was first discovered when he enlisted in the People's Liberation Army, and he published his first novel in 1981.
他首次这个文学的才能的展现是在参加了人民解放军的时候。那么他的第一部小说的发表是在1981年。
His international breakthrough came with his novel Red Sorghum.
但是他在国际舞台上声名鹊起呢，是因为《红高粱》这本小说。
His writing spanned short stories, novels, and essays, and the Nobel Committee praised the way that he merges hallucinatory realism with folk tales, history, and the contemporary.
莫言老师的写作作品呢，包括短篇小说、长篇小说、散文等等各种类型。那么诺贝尔的评委会呢，称赞他的小说是以幻觉现实主义的方式，将中国的民间传说、历史以及现代社会的相关的状况有效地结合在了一起。
And it's exciting to hear, as we did last night, that he is now turning his attention to dramatic writing.
那么就像昨天晚上有稍微谈到一下，未来呢，我们希望期待他未来的写作方向向更加戏剧化的方向发展。
Su Tong is one of China's most acclaimed novelists. He was internationally recognized when the film of his novella, originally titled Wives and Concubines, but known in the West as Raise the Red Lantern, was nominated for an Academy Award in 1993.
苏童老师是中国备受瞩目的小说家之一。那么他的国际声望是来自于他的一个中篇小说，原名是《妻妾成群》，后被改编为电影《大红灯笼高高挂》，并在1993年的时候，这部电影呢因此获得了奥斯卡金像奖。
In 2009, he was awarded the Man Literary Prize for his novel Poetry Redemption, and in 2015, the Malvern Literature Prize, one of the most prestigious literary prizes in China, for Yellow Bird Stories.
2009年的时候，苏童老师获得了英士曼亚洲文学奖，获奖作品是《河岸》。2015年的时候，获得了中国最高的文学奖项茅盾文学奖。那么获奖作品是《黄雀》。
Last year, the English translation of his 1991 novel, Julia's Rougekins, was published by Cambridge Studies.
在去年呢，苏童老师1991年的作品《红粉》也有了英译版，并且由企鹅出版社来出版。
Yuval is one of China's best-known novelists. A writer of short stories as well as novels, he is one of the generation of writers responsible for reconstructing modern Chinese literature in the 1980s.
余华老师也是中国非常有名的小说家之一，他的作品呢包括短篇小说集以及长篇小说，并且呢，他是在1980年代那一批重塑了中国现代文学的这一批非常有名的作家的其中一位。
He is the recipient of numerous international awards and honours. His novel To Live was awarded the Italian Premio Gonzane Cavour in 1998 and Giuseppe Acerbi Prize in 2014, and earned him recognition by the French government in 2004 when he was made Chevalier de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres.
他的所有作品呢，也都收到了各种国际的奖项，比如《活着》这一部作品，就在1998年的时候得到意大利格林托纳卡福文学奖，并在2014年的时候获得切尔比国际文学奖。同时呢，也因为这一部作品获得了法国政府在2004年授予的法国艺术与文学勋章。
In 2002, he was the first Chinese writer to be awarded the James Joyce Prize. In 2008, Yuval was awarded the French Prix Courrier International for Brothers.
2002年的时候，他是成为了首个获得 James Joyce 文学奖的中国作家，并且在2008年的时候，凭借《兄弟》这一部作品获得了法国国际信使外国小说奖。
His most recent novel, The Seventh Day, was published in 2015.
在2015年的时候，出版了他的最新小说《第7日》。
Now, our moderator for this evening's conversation is Boyd Tonkin.
现在，请让我介绍今天晚上的主持人，他是 Boyd Tonkin 先生。
He's a writer, journalist, and critic who chaired the judging panel of the Man Booker International Prize in 2016 and now acts as its special advisor.
那么他是一位作家，同时也是记者和评论家，同时担任2016年布克国际文学奖的评委。现在呢，他是作为布克国际文学奖的特别顾问。
He writes for the Financial Times, The Economist, The Spectator, The Observer, New Scientist, and Newsweek magazine, and is contributing editor for the Arts Desk online.
他为多家著名的杂志以及期刊等进行写作，其中包括《金融时报》、经济学人》、旁观者、观察者、新科学家、新闻周刊等等杂志。同时呢，也是我们一个叫做Arts Desk 的在线艺术平台的长期作家、长期编辑。
Until 2016, he was senior writer of The Independent and was the newspaper's literary editor from 1996 to 2013.
直到2016年为止，他一直是作为我们《独立报》的这个高级作者，并且在1996年到2013年担任该报刊的文学这个部分的编辑。
He refounded the Independent Foreign Fiction Prize in 2001, co-judging it every year until its merger with the Man Booker International Prize.
他建立了《独立报》外国虚构小说奖，那么这是在2001年，并且一直担任评委，直到这一个奖项与布克国际文学奖合并。
He's the author of the 100 best novels in translation, published by Galileo in 2018, a book which Ian McEwan has described as opening up infinite worlds of the imagination.
同时，他也是100部最佳翻译小说这一部著作的作者。那么这一部书呢，是在2018年由伽利略出版社出版，被伊恩·麦克尤恩评价为打开了无限想象大门的一部作品。
Please join me in welcoming our guests.
Very much, Lynn. First of all, I hope that everyone can hear me. If not, maybe one of these microphones.
非常感谢Lynn的介绍。那么首先，我希望我的声音足够大。如果大家听不到的话，我就用话筒。这样会不会好一点？
Yes, it is. Well, this is a wonderful occasion, and to be honest, to have any of our three guests here this afternoon would be a huge pleasure and a privilege. To have all three of them is really quite extraordinary. If Chinese fiction ever created a dream team, then this would be it.
那么今天在座的3位作家呢，如果能够邀请到任何一位前来我们核心，都已经是非常荣幸的事情。那么今天我们可以同时见到3位作家，实在是万幸。我想呢，如果说中国小说有一个梦之队的话，那应该就是在座的3位了。
And now I don't want to minimize the differences between them, between three writers who have very, very distinctive and individual styles. But I would perhaps like to reiterate that statement in the Nobel Prize citation to Mo Yan in 2012 about a writer who, with hallucinatory realism, merges folk tales, history, and the contemporary. And perhaps, without wanting to overlook their distinctive voices, all our guests do something of that in their work.
那么我希望呢，我的介绍或者今天的采访呢，可以彰显出3位作家写作风格以及个人风格上的这个差异，因为每一个人都是非常有个性的。那么这里呢，我想要引用刚才丽也介绍过的2012年诺贝尔文学奖评委会对莫言老师的一个评价，就是他用幻觉现实主义将中国的传统这个民间传说历史和当代的社会情况很好的结合在一起。那虽然这是对莫言老师的一个评价，但是我觉得在座的3位作家的作品当中都能够反映出这一点，但同时又非常有个人风格。
Now, let me say something about the structure of this evening. We're going to begin with our theme of finding the right words, and Yuhua, Mo Yan, and Sutong will be reading a short piece inspired by the subject. Then we'll have a more general discussion, and after that, there will be time for your own questions. So to begin with, I think it would be wonderful to hear the voices of each of our guests.
那么我简单介绍一下今天晚上的安排。首先呢，我们的3位作家将分别就我们今天的主题文海寻词来做一个短的演讲。之后呢，我们会展开这个主要的讨论和对话。对话结束以后，会给在座的各位观众留下提问的时间。那么现在就让我们有请第1位这个作家来进行演讲。
So let us begin with Yuhua. Following my script.
我只是按照我的这个安排表在读啊，不好意思。
可能是我的位置吧，我的位置坐在这个比较适合第一个说话。
I think it's all because I'm sitting in the very first position.
我的演讲稿写得很长啊，但是居然写了，我还是给他念一下。
I'll read my script.
What? 我的这个题目是叫逢场作戏的语言。
The title of the theme of my speech is called "The Words That Perform When the Right Occasion Arises."
逢场作戏原来的意思是指旧时代中国走江湖的艺人遇到合适的场合就会表演。现在这个成语被出轨的中国男人广泛使用。欺负的人没有解释，最怕只是逢场作戏，对的才是爱，这个是危及公关。你狗子呸！
The origin of the idiom "perform when the right occasion arises" came from the condition of Chinese wandering performers in the old times, when they would perform to gain some money to spend when the timing and scene was right. But in the present age, this idiom has been widely used by derailed Chinese men when explaining to their wife or girlfriend that I was only performing for fun according to the occasion, but my love goes to you. This is called PR crisis management.
我在此引用这个成语是删除了第二个意思，保留了第一个意思。就如什么样的江湖艺人寻找什么样的表演场合，什么样的叙述也在寻找什么样的语言。
But my quote in the idiom today is after the original meaning, not the present one. Just as how wandering performers are looking for the right timing and saying, different narration styles are also searching for the right words to convey the emotion.
在我37年的写作生涯里，曾经几次描写过月光下的道路。
In my 37 years of writing, I have come across several times the occasion where I need to depict a road under the moonlight.
1991年，我写下的中篇小说《夏季台风》，这是1976年唐山大地震之后，一个南方小镇上的人们对于地震即将来临的恐惧的故事。
Take Summer Typhoon, for example. It is a novella I wrote in 1991 about the fear in a small village of southern China of an upcoming earthquake following the devastating Tangshan earthquake in 1976.
开篇描写了一个少年回想父亲去世时的夜晚，在那个月光挥舞的夜晚，他的脚步声在一条名叫河水的街道上回荡了很久。那时候有一只夜晚的长箫正在吹奏，伤心之声四处游荡。
The novel begins with a teenager recalling the night when his father died. That night, as moonlight came and went, his footsteps echoed along River Water Street, and a flute cast its melancholy tune in all directions.
月光挥舞暗示了他内心的茫然，虽然有长箫吹奏出来的伤心之声。但是情感仍然被压抑住了，因为少年不是正在经历父亲去世的情景，而是正在回想。
By writing Moonlight Came and Went, I delineated his inner emptiness and confusion after his loss. The use of words projects a suppressed sad feeling in his heart, even though there is a flute casting melancholy tune nearby. I chose to write in this way because the teenager is not going through the saying of his father's death, but recalling.
1年以后，1992年，我在写作《活着》的时候，福贵把死去的儿子友庆埋在了春熙的一棵树下。他不敢告诉瘫痪在床的妻子家珍，他骗家珍儿子上课时突然昏倒，送到医院去了。
A year later, in 1992, I started to write another novel called To Live. In it, one of the main characters, Fu Gui, buried his dead son under a tree to the west of the village. He dared not tell his paralyzed wife, Jia Zhen, about it, and lied to her that their son suddenly fainted in school and was sent to the hospital.
家珍知道这个事情后，福贵背上他来到了春熙儿子的坟前，看着家珍扑在儿子坟上哭泣，双手在坟上摸着，像是在抚摸儿子。
When Jia Zhen found out the truth, Fu Gui carried her on the back to see their son's grave. When he saw how his wife threw herself on the grave and cried, touching it as if stroking their son, Fu Gui felt very sad.
福贵心如刀割，后悔自己不应该把儿子偷偷埋掉，应该让家珍最后一眼也没见着。
He felt as if a knife was piercing through his heart, and regretted to have buried his son so secretly that Jia Zhen lost the chance to see him for the last time.
活着的叙述是在福贵讲述自己的一生中前行的。福贵是一个只上过3年私塾的农民，叙述语言因此简洁朴素。
The novel narrates in the tone of Fu Gui's monologue. He is a peasant who has only went to school for 3 years, so the words are adopted for the narration is simple and plain.
友庆在县城上学，他早晨要割羊草，担心迟到，他每天跑着去城里的学校。家珍给他做的布鞋，跑几次就破了。福贵骂他是在吃血。友庆此后都是把布鞋脱下来拿在手里，赤脚跑向城里的学校。
For instance, and another example is their son, Liu Qing. I wrote that he went to a town school, but in the morning he had to cut grass for the goats first. Afraid of being late, he always ran to school. for which reason the shoes Jiazhen made for him were worn out very quickly. So I wrote here that he was scolded by his father Fu Gui for being a shoe eater. Since then, You Qing would always take off his shoes, hold them in hands, and ran to school barefoot.
所以每天的奔跑让有庆在学校运动会上拿了长跑冠军。
And that helped him to win the school championship for long distance race.
所以当那个有庆死后，当那个埋下有那个福贵把家珍背到身上，离开有庆的坟墓，来到村口，家珍说有庆不会在这条路上跑来了。这时候我必须写出福贵看着那条月光下的小路的感受。
And now, when Fu Gui and Jiazhen journeyed back to the village from their son's grave, she said on his back that You Qing would never run on this road again. So at this point, I must describe the feeling of Fu Gui looking at the path under the moonlight.
这时候，错了，我找到了言的意象，这是我能够找到的最准确的意象。
So I considered and found the emotional conception of salt to be the most appropriate and accurate word for this scene.
因为盐对于农民是最熟悉的。
First of all, because salt is a daily condiment familiar to peasants.
还有盐和伤口的关系也是众所周知。
And secondly, the painful connection between salt and wound is universal.
与夏季台风里那个情感被压抑的句子不同，这里需要情感释放出来的句子。
And unlike the depiction in Summer Typhoon, where emotion is suppressed, there is a need to release emotion here.
我看着那条弯曲着通向城里的小路，听不到我儿子赤脚跑来的声音，月光照在路上，像是洒满了盐。
Therefore I wrote, I gazed down the trail that snaked its way into town. No more would I hear the sound of my son running back alone in barefoot. The trail glimmered in the moonlight as though sprinkled all over with salt.
逢场作戏的语言在文学作品的翻译中也是需要的。
There are some examples about how words, these are some examples about how words performing at the right location to help deliver the writer's intention for the story. But in addition to that, words are also necessary to be performed in the right location in literature translation.
去年6月，我在葡萄牙的时候，见到一位在里斯本大学学习翻译专业的中国留学生。
Last June in Portugal, I met a Chinese student studying translation at the University of Lisbon.
他因为自己的博士论文需要，翻译了我作品中的部分内容。
He translated part of my work for her doctoral dissertation, in which there are some sentences quoted from my novel.
其中有一句是文革时期的口号：“您要社会主义的草，不要资本主义的苗。”意思是宁愿挨饿，也要政治正确。
One of the quotes is something I quoted from the Cultural Revolution period. It was translated as "Better the grass of socialism than the seedling of capitalism."
但是她的葡萄牙的男朋友看不懂，对于葡萄牙人来说，草和苗没有什么区别。
What it actually means is that one would rather starve than to lose political correctness. However, her Portuguese boyfriend couldn't understand that translation because grass and seedling make little differences in terms of value to him and Portuguese in general.
为此，他去寻找了葡萄牙文版里的译文。我的葡萄牙译者压根是这样翻译的：“您要社会主义的草，不要资本主义的话。”
Searched for the existing Portuguese translation of my book and found that my translator Tiago put it as "better the grass of socialism than the flower of capitalism."
把苗翻译成话，葡萄牙读者立刻明白了。
By changing seedling to flower, it immediately makes sense to the Portuguese audience.
显然，迪亚哥找到了在葡萄牙表演中国戏的合适场合。
Obviously, Diego has found the right occasion in Portugal to perform the Chinese story.
我念完了啊，看着
I finished my reading. 非常感谢，现在有请莫言。
因为我在这3个人里边年龄最 华大5岁，苏童大8岁，所以我理所当然的因为大学学年，
I am actually the oldest among 3 of us, 5 years old than Mr. Yuhua and 8 years old than Mr. Su Tong. So I thought I was supposed to be the first.
文海寻词这个题目起得非常好。
I think finding the right words is an excellent title for our event.
自从有了互联网，有了百度和谷歌这样的功能强大的搜索引擎，从茫茫的文海里面寻找一个词汇，就变成了一件轻松简单的事情。
For ever since the internet was born, many powerful search engines such as Baidu and Google have come into being. Searching for a word in a vast sea of words has thus become a piece of cake.
比如我要搜一下莎士比亚关于爱情的名言警句，输入关键词后，屏幕上立刻会跳出数百条这方面的信息。
For example, if I would like to search for Shakespeare's love quotes, enter the keywords and click next, then hundreds of entries are available on the screen.
但是这些话真的是莎士比亚说的吗？
It's really by Shakespeare.
毫无疑问，有很多话是从莎士比亚的剧本和诗里面白录的，但也有一些话是张冠李戴。
Unquestionably, many of them are excerpts from his plays and sonnets, but very possibly some are wrongly tagged, and others are artifacts written by unappreciated talents.
也有一些是有才而无名者的假托。如果要严肃的引用，必须查对原著，认真的核实。
So if one is to cite for serious purpose, he should look up the original works and proofread with caution.
现在这个互联网时代，这个稍微有名的人都会被很多的名言警句所缠绕。
And especially in this era of internet, as long as you gained a little bit of fame, you will be quoted, and a lot of so-called quotes are made up for you.
现在手机的朋友圈里也流传了很多关于我写的励志文。
I always found something that people claim is said by Mo Yan, but I never remember I said such thing.
你们不要因为余华他苏童写的啊。
Or it could be written by Yu Hua or Su Tong, I don't know.
因为他们呢也有很多人假托他们的名字呢，伪造了很多名言警句。
But again, many people lied about their quotes as well.
在当今这样的时代啊，获取一般知识的途径变得简单而快捷，但要获得真知灼见的途径依然艰难而曲折。
In our age, we can see that acquiring general knowledge has become quick and simple, yet the road to insight is still long and difficult.
计算机的确已经能够轻松地战胜世界一流的棋手，但计算机起码在现阶段还无法战胜为它编写程序的人。
Computers have for sure defeated world-class Go professionals, but at least so far, they cannot beat the programmers who created.
计算机的确已经能够写出符合一切技术要求的中国古典诗词，但计算机的确也没有写出一句能够流传下去的诗句。估计短期之内，也没有一台计算机能够写出跟莎士比亚的剧本一样水平的剧本来。
Computers have for sure been able to write classical Chinese poems that meet the metrical constraints, but they have not yet written a single verse that shall ever live young. My expectation is that, in the foreseeable future, no computers shall write a play comparable with Shakespeare's.
我的意思就是说呢，在当今这样的互联网时代，真正的具有原创性的、具有鲜明的个性特征的文章，还是要依仗作者的勤奋和天才。
What I mean is, in the internet era as we are, the truly original and characteristic articles would still depend on the writer's talents and hard work.
唐朝的李贺有诗曰：“寻章载句老雕虫，晓月当年画玉工。不见年年辽海上，文章何处苦秋风。”
Li He, a great poet of Tang Dynasty, once wrote, "Seeking a style, culling my phrases, grown old carving grubs. At dawn the moon hangs in my blinds, a bowl of jade. Can't you see what is going on, yea, year after year, by the sea of Liaodong? Whatever can a writer do but weep in the autumn wind?
自己能翻译这么长。这首诗看起来像个作者在贬低自己的诗人生涯，那诗中也还包含着有对自己的严肃认真、读文练字的创作态度的赞赏。
At first glance, Li He seems to be abasing his own career as a poet. However, there is also a hint of self-approval of his writing attitude, which embraces solemnity and earnestness, as well as a careful deliberation on every word and sentence.
古人有一安一个字，碾断数径虚的创作精神。要想写出好诗，必须到浩如烟海的文海里去寻词，非如此不能成佳句。
The ancients have a verse describing writing spirit that goes, chanting in search of the right word, I twisted off several hairs of my beard. In seek of beautiful poems, one has to search for expressions in a voluminous piles of literature. Only in this way can they seize the beautiful line.
当然也有灵感勃发、脱口而出的情况，但这样的佳况也是建立在日常的深厚知识积累和深刻的情感体验基础上。
Of course, there are flashes of inspiration and occasional spontaneity, but that is only possible given a day-by-day steady accumulation of knowledge and profound emotional experience.
李贺这首诗的后两句曲折地写了边关的战乱和国家的衰败，文人的欲哭无泪和报国无门。
The last two lines of Li He's poem I read just now is a circumlocutory depiction of the tumultuous borderland and a declined national power, and academics' tearless grief of his inability to serve his country.
正因为后两句对国家命运的担忧和怀才不遇的牢骚，就使得这首诗具有了深刻的社会内容。
It is exactly what is entailed in these two lines, the deep concern for the destiny of his homeland and the discontentment of this unrecognized talent that renders a penetrating social motive.
我想说的是，要写出好的文章、诗歌、剧本，一定要有一是要有深厚的学养，二是要有精益求精的精神，三是要有对社会、对生活的关切。
What I mean is, in order to write beautiful articles, poems, and plays, one must meet three conditions: great taste and cultivation, relentless pursuit for excellence, and profound care for the society and for life.
当然，文学作品最重要的任务还是要写人，也唯有具备了上述三条，才能真正的写出人的丰富性，写出人的伟大与人的渺小。
Of course, the supreme task of literature is to write people after all. Thus, it is only until the three above-mentioned conditions are met that a writer is able to depict the richness of human conditions and to delineate the greatness as well as the insignificance of us human beings.
好，谢谢我们的翻译。
Thank you very much.
我把它关了。刚才余华老师那个开场白关于逢场作戏这个关键词，真是用的挺好。
I think it's excellent how you have quoted the Chinese idiom that means the words should perform when the right occasion arises.
但是逢场作戏也是一种能力。
But I consider it is an ability very important as well.
往往影帝级的人物逢场作戏的效果就特别好。
Especially for those actors and actresses who won Oscar, they are very good at it.
我觉得从某种意义上，我的发言也是逢场作戏。
So I consider my speech as another kind of performance on the right occasion.
说实在的，我从来没有考虑过词语是怎么回事。
To be honest, in the past, I've never really considered about the concept of words and how the relationship of it with literature.
这很奇怪，一个作家在写作当中一直在使用词语，那就像一个人，一个健康人，他从来不考虑呼吸是怎么回事我觉得有点一样。
It's interesting because we are writers, we use words to write our book all the time. However, we do not really consider about it so much, just like healthy people never really consider about breathing.
所以这是一次逢场作戏。
So I am going to perform on this right occasion.
至于说到莫言啊，刚才我突然想起来，我的岳父岳母啊，他不看小说的，他经常跟我赞美莫言老师真是一个伟大的作家。每次他跟我这么赞美的时候，我就知道他一定在网络上看到假莫言了。
Speaking of Sutong, speaking of Yuhua and Mo Yan, I have a story that is very interesting. My parents-in-law, they never really read novels, but they, time after time, they came to me and say to me that Mr. Mo Yan is such a great writer. So every time when I hear this, I know they probably read some fake quotes by Mo Yan on the internet again.
我这个从假装学术啊，我就从词语有个冒号啊，然后从短篇小说的叙事说起。
So I will perform a scholar this evening and start with words, starting with the narration of the short story.
在中国文化的背景下，谈论短篇小说，人们很容易说它是一唱三叹的艺术。说它是微言大义的艺术。
Given the context of Chinese culture, it is very common to define short stories as an art formed in simple words but with intense emotional resonance and profound meanings.
为什么一唱能够三叹？为什么微言能够大义？这其实都是对短篇小说的叙事抱有一种美好的期望。
How can simple words be powerful enough to produce such tremendous effects? This stems from the public's anticipation towards the short story's approach of narration.
如果说这个美好的期望有根基、有逻辑，我想它本质上是基于对词语的信任和理解，和期望。
And more substantially, the anticipation of the use of words.
这样的信任与期望也是一种暗示。他暗示作家要像魔法师对待手里的鲜花、手绢、小老鼠一样来对待词语。
With such trust, the writers of the short story are therefore expected to perform with words, just as what magicians do with their props to make them larger, smaller, deformed, or disappeared in full view of the audience.
在观众的注视下，在各种方法的铺垫下，让词语变大。变小、异形或者消失，或者让词语燃烧，让词语融化。
Or with various narrative techniques adopted by writers, they're expected to be like magicians, to make the words be splendid as a flame and sometimes as subtle as ice.
我们批评或者赞美一个短篇小说，使用的往往也是被修剪了的词语，口述动人，直击人心。意味深长，诸如此类。
It is often the case where highly concise words are used to criticize or compliment a short story, such as simply moving, breathtaking, significant, etc.
不过，我们都明显地面临这样的窘境：一个用一两个词语就能囊括意义的短篇小说，令人深疑，它值得谈论吗？相反，一个无法用简短的词语概括的短篇小说。同样也让人怀疑，它还是短篇小说吗？
However, we have clearly been in a situation whereby we wonder if a short story that can be concluded with one or two words rouses suspicion, and if it deserves a discourse. Conversely, if a short story cannot be generalized by several brief words, is it still a short story?
所以，短篇小说历来就让人为难。一门来自词语的艺术，偏偏最终是词语 陷入了困境。
In this case, the existence of short stories have always been awkward, such as an art form that derives from words, getting to a dilemma with words in the end.
谈论短篇小说的内部，谈论它的深处，从来都很难。用中国的传统美学探讨短篇是一个途径，一种角度。
Exploring the profundity of a short story in words is never an easy task, while traditional Chinese aesthetics actually provides a distinctive approach and perspective for its discussion.
比如说，中国人很喜欢用“气”这个词，这个词很微妙，也很万能。
For example, the Chinese character qi is very frequently adopted when criticizing an essay or an article. It is quite subtle, but it's universal as well.
气在短篇小说里的分配，在我看来就是一聚一散，因为空间狭窄，更要适时适地，要在分寸上。说起来，小说如何用气，其实就是如何对词语进行筛选、裁剪和铺陈。
Specifically, it is the choice, embellishment, and presentation of words that construct such energy as we call qi. Due to the limitation of length of the short story, the distribution of qi that when and where to gather or to part this energy should therefore always be arranged in a measured way.
不是所有的词语都要保持苗条，该瘦则瘦，该胖一定要胖，也不是所有的词语都要弃暗投明。有时候词语是倔强的，一心要往悬崖上去，需要的恰好是弃明投暗。
If every word is compared to an animate being, all the words should be individualized as what they are supposed to be in their context, with some being slim and some being voluminous, and with some embracing brightness and some heading towards the cliff and darkness.
我一直觉得创作的魅力，很大程度上是运筹词语的魅力。所有来自小说的光辉，不仅是思想的光辉，同时也是词语的光辉。
Personally speaking, I always attribute the attractiveness of writing to the charm of words. The brilliance of a novel does not only come from the greatness of the ideas it contains, but also benefits from the extraordinary words it uses.
当然，当我们在探讨小说的词语的时候，一定是在探讨小说叙事的问题。叙事问题又不仅仅是词语问题，所以从这个意义上来说，词语也不必过分喧闹，它应该匍匐下来，安静下来，甚至顿行。
As for the narration of the novel, while it is inevitably influenced by the arrangement of words, it is definitely not influenced merely by words. In this sense, words themselves also should not be rhetorical, which is too exuberant and bustling, and may steal the whole show.
冷静地想一想，所有的小说都要将读者从此岸带到彼岸，叙事就是那条渡船，而词语是叙事的细胞，它应该埋在叙事的皮肤之下，在血液里流动，而且只有一个方向可以流动，那就是叙事的对岸。
They should be down to earth or even conceal themselves in an imperceptible form. And the reason for doing so is quite evident if we think that the purpose of a novel is to use the story to take the audience from one bank to the other bank. Then the words could be considered as the cell and integrated together to be the blood in the vein. And the vein is the way of the narration.
这个真的蛮无聊的，还几句就结束。
I'm sorry for boring you. There's still a few more sentences to go.
无论是长篇小说汪洋大海般的文字，还是短篇小说的数千文字，都只有一个任务：齐心协力，顺流而下，把读者送到对岸去。
So, all in all, whether it is an ocean of words employed by a long novel or merely thousands of words for a short story, they are all meant to serve one ultimate goal: to float down the stream and send readers to the shore of God. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to all three of you. I think you'll agree with me if I say that we really do have a constellation of amazingly fertile voices who have already given us a kind of masterclass in the art of fiction. But I want to go back now to a much earlier stage in the making of a writer. I want to ask, what were the first stories that really had a powerful impact on you? And the second half of my question is, when and how did you decide that you were not just going to be a hearer of stories, but a professional teller of stories?
非常感谢三位，今天听了你们的演讲，我感觉像是上了一堂浓缩型的这个大师文学课堂。但是现在呢，我希望把时间呢往回追溯一点，追溯到作家的养成。那么我的第一个问题分两个部分。首先，第一个部分呢是关于各位所读到的第一个对你们的影响非常大的这样的故事或者是小说。那第二个部分呢，就是从什么时候以及为什么你们决定不再做一个默默的读者，而要成为一个专业的讲故事的人。
I don't mind who answers.
那么这个问题一般的表现，我先说了啊。
Okay, I'll be the first one to answer this question.
我读过的第一本书应该是一本带插图的中国的古典小说，叫《封神演义》。